Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, 1/3 whole milk, 1/3 almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Chase, here we are again, following up on kind of where we were going with explanation of values of Boomer, values, characteristics of Millennials. And now, after my tirade last episode about what drove me crazy from Millennials, I'm going to give you your shot. Take it now as you can and enlighten me on things Millennials do not understand about Boomers.
Well, there's a whole list of things here. How long do we have? Just as a quick reminder, for those of you who are just joining this series, we started with who are boomers? And the next week was who are millennials? What
Yep.
makes them tick? And then last week, as you mentioned, we talked about the things millennials do that irritate boomers. And it was a nice long list. We had some disagreements on it, but today I think we're going to cover some things that we just do not understand about the boomers. Before we dig in, I wanted to mention a couple comments that came in on our running an effective meeting, season 1, episode 1. We had the Gen Xer of the family, my sister, your daughter, mentioned first time I have been mentioned in a podcast, and then a bunch of emojis.
Likes it when she gets a shout out.
Yeah,
Congratulations to her. We've got to have her as a guest. We absolutely have to have her.
we'll get her. And then we had one. This is where you made a reference to the fact that boomers love food pics.
Yep.
And we got a comment that said, not all of us like pictures of food.
Written by a true millennial.
Actually, no, it was written by a boomer.
Oh.
Yeah. So, anyway, today we're going to jump in. Things millennials do not understand about boomers. And we've kind of joked about a couple of these things, but we're going to dig in just a little bit here. First and foremost, going to the bank. We just don't understand it. What do you do in there all the time?
So let me tell you, and you'll probably not even appreciate this, but there's in writing checks in checkbook, you have a register. And a register is you record in there the check number, the date, who you wrote it to, and the amount that was written, the deposit, the number, the date, and the amount, and you keep a running tally with paper, pencil, and my wife has different colored pens that she uses and a calculator. She's got her favorite calculator. So we went into the bank and said, hey, we need some more registers. And she said, excuse me? And we said, hey, we need some more check registers. She's like, check registers? Her eyes glazed over. She rolled her eyes. And it took us, 30 or 40 seconds of communicating with this young lady to tell her, hey, we need to balance our checkbook. Give us the check register. And so she gave us one. And it was, seriously, can you give us a half? Well, I'd have to charge you for that. And it's like, wait a minute. So if we do nothing, then go into a bank to communicate with a face and a person. That's what we do.
All right. So for those of you on YouTube, you'll be able to understand this. I'll walk you through it for those listening to just the podcast. But for millennial, we like to take this thing right here, a card, and we don't even like to swipe it anymore. We just like to beep, touch it, and we pay. And then the wildest thing happens. You have this thing called an app. They're on phones now, and it does all that for you. You get the whole checking register thing already built in. It imports all your charges. It's great. You're gonna love it.
But what about when the bank makes a mistake? I tell you, my wife, I feel sorry for the bank. She goes after every single penny and accounts for it penny by penny by penny. And we've always done that. And it's a thing that we go do. The problem is when you find an error in your favor and go to try to give 26 cents back to the bank because they made an error, it throws them for a loop. They can't understand it. It breaks their system. Anyway, balancing a checkbook, going to the bank, and writing checks. I wrote a check just the other day, and here's why. I did find that if you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you use your beep, they charge you $2.50 processing fee. But if you write a check, they waive the processing fee. If that's the case, every day I will write checks till the cows come home.
I will say I did have to go to the bank last year, into the bank, and the reason is I had to pay my property tax or something. And like you said, they wanted to charge. It was a percentage. I mean, it was a big percentage on something so big. And so they said, well, if you write a check, we'll waive that. What's a check? I mean, I've probably written 15 checks in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was always to pay the government.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They want that. And then you always get the evidence of what you did and what you sent. So you can write that. So I do, and I'll defend that, although it's not the most efficient way. It's until they get things a little bit. I look down my nose at those people and say, well, everything is not perfect in the electronics world. So
Yeah, well, speaking of non-electronics, things that millennials do not understand about boomers, writing letters.
I love writing letters. In fact, there was a thing at work, and what's your superpower? My superpower is writing letters. I even, if I'm traveling, I'll even take a moment and write postcards to my grandkids. I like them to be able to get it out of the mailbox. I like them to be able to take it and read it. And it just does my heart good. I think my writing skills are top notch, as a matter of fact.
If you say so yourself.
My pronunciation, enunciation, punctuation is all good. And that's one thing that's drifted. That comes from writing letters. Your grandma would love to get a letter from you and from your grandkids.
Yeah.
That's handwritten.
The question is, how does spell check work when you're writing a letter?
You talk it into your voice and you say, hey, AI, how do I spell? And it comes back.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so the next one.
Wait, just stop here a minute. I feel like I'm defending millennials here. I feel like I'm like in a corner having to lash back out. And that's one thing that millennial or that boomers do is we get defensive. So to the point of how do you handle conflict, I tell you, millennials, settle down. Boomers, settle down. That's one of the things that I've learned and what I've got to do.
Settle down, big boy. Settle down.
It's not me against you. It's I'll write you a letter about it.
Write me a letter. Find a stamp. Go to the post office and buy some stamps as well.
I've already got many forever stamps that I bought 16 revisions ago of increases in prices.
Oh, so what else do boomers do that we just don't understand? You know how to read a map.
Yep.
Not just like read a map. You could use a map to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
Where the map doesn't even talk to you and tell you to turn right in 200 feet.
Well, I don't believe that when the GPS whatever tells me to turn right, it's like, no, I'm not turning right. I got a better idea. And guess what? I should have turned right. So that's one thing that boomers don't like about boomers is we think that the navigation systems are wrong. Anyway, maps. We lived in Southern California a lot when you were growing up, and we had a Thomas guide, and it was about that thick.
It's huge.
And that's how you got around LA. And that's the way that we did it. You couldn't survive. And now, I tell you, I'm giving away too much information, but we say, hey, let's go across town. And I say, put it in the GPS. And my wife's like, you're crazy. You know how to get there. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, no, because the GPS will tell you if there's an alternate route, if there's a wreck, if there's a close, and things like that. So I use it not to get from point A to point B, but to avert the problematic points of getting from point A to point B. My map doesn't tell me that.
No, your map doesn't tell you that. Look at you, just joining the year 2024. That's awesome. How about this one? Millennials don't understand why and how boomers judge fashion. Look, I've seen some of the stuff y'all wear. You're going to judge fashion?
Well, and that's that we talked a little bit about that because you guys are so casual, right? And we've got to make a comment about that because we do think we're the fashion police, if you want to put it that way. And I think we had a little bit more fashion than what you guys did today. I tell you, it surprises me. I think millennials try to dress down to make a statement. What do you think about that? Because I do. I think they want to make a point, and so they'll dress down for the shock factor.
Mm, I think that could be true in some instances. Um, I think that just the fashion sense overall has changed dramatically. You look at our casualness, and you say, "Oh, that's cheap." Right, they're wearing a t-shirt and jeans or something, and you think that it's less than. But what you don't understand is that millennial isn't just wearing like a Walmart t-shirt, right? They're wearing an unbound merino wool t-shirt that costs $127 compared to the boomers who are wearing their on sale 1999 button ups, from Belks or whatever. Like, yes, I think that it's different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's
Wrong.
yeah. But you know what
I
I think
do.
my point
I
is
get that, but be appropriate. I'll just stop there. I've already said that before. So
based on whose appropriateness, though, because
boomers, of course. Enough said.
yeah, done, yeah. No, I mean,
Problem
the
solved.
question is, and I know there's been a lot of research on this, and I'm not denigrating that research, but do I have to wear a suit and a tie? And for the record, I'm the one millennial who loves to wear. I would wear a suit and tie every day if I could.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is me wearing a suit and tie going to positively or negatively impact the ability to type up the report for my boss? Maybe, maybe not. Um, there's a lot of research. If you look the part, you perform up to that level, and I get that. But at the same time, whose level are we trying to attain? And
Yeah. 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 At what viewpoint and what glasses are you looking at the instance about? So
yeah. Well, right along with that, you just complained about the younger generations, and millennials do not understand why we complain about younger generations. Although the next generation that have their GoPros attached to everything, walking everywhere, talking to their phones and cameras, that is kind of annoying. I don't want to be an extra on your YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do. You
Yeah.
don't want to be in the background. There should be, I don't know, some people have said there should be laws on content, right? Because
Yeah.
they're out in public. But I tell you, we do complain about younger generations. Both of us do. But
That one might be universal.
yeah, but you also complain about older generations.
Well,
And
we don't
so,
discriminate.
okay, you're equal complainers.
Yeah, yeah.
And guess what? You are. That should be on the list. So
Well, kind of going along with that, boomers love to give unsolicited advice, which is probably why you wanted to start this podcast so badly.
exactly. And let me give you a little bit of advice about that. Since you asked, no, I agree. Is we've always got some level of here. Let me tell you what the way it is, and we shame on us. Shame on us. I'll give you that one.
Yeah. Well, many times the unsolicited advice, especially as we grew up and reached the college level, was insisting on formal education.
Yeah,
And we've talked about that a little bit. And I wish that we would have been recording the first time that we ever talked about this, because the look on your face when I said, "Man, I don't think everyone should go to college." The look on your face was, "How dare you?
yeah.
Don't you dare." But as we talked about it, I think I made my points valid and we got to a point where we can agree to some of it.
I think so because number one, I'm not so sure that people are um, getting a good higher level of education in the arts and in the skills that are going to be contributory to getting a good employment, right?
Mhm.
But also, I'm convinced now this world needs more. Uh, Professionals in the way that there's things that you can do in a trade school that we really need and that we're missing out on. I'm all for it. I don't think you need to go to college anymore. Part of that is on the college people and the price and the student loans and things like that. You can't just go get a $200,000 college degree that in the end won't contribute to a good way to pay that back or to
Yeah.
go
It
do that.
makes sense if you want to be a doctor because you're going to
Yes,
make a lot of money and you'll be able to pay that debt off and you have to know some really specific things in
right,
order to be a
right.
doctor. It just doesn't make sense if you want to go open your own small business.
Yeah, yeah,
A business degree would be helpful. Uh Underwater basket weaving of people from some tribe in Africa like that just $200,000 in a degree in that. While it may be interesting and it might be something you love studying, you're never going to get your money out of
right,
that.
right. Yeah, there's things of studying that are should be pastimes more so than a career. I agree with that. So, and yet we still need all of the trades. They'll always have those,
Yeah.
and they'll be important to
I think
society.
COVID pushed the boomers to understand this differently. Because when you have the entire world telling you about the essential workers, it kind of brought those trades back to the forefront of, oh yeah, we do need people that know
Right.
HVAC and plumbing and all these other things.
Right. So, formal education. Let me change that a little bit to collegiate level formal education because I still think you need to learn your trade or learn your and some of that can be learned by the School of Hard Knocks. So, okay,
Yeah. On here, we've got the boomers love to go to church regularly. And I think even though the overall church numbers are dwindling,
yes,
regardless of age demographic, boomers generally still go to church far more often than millennials.
I think so. I think they do, and I don't know that that is really irritating to millennials because it frees up Sunday morning activities for them to go partake in, maybe. But I guess they don't understand it, maybe,
Yeah.
and
Well, I think that churches, how the boomers have viewed the church, and this is speaking as a millennial who goes to church every week, right? The boomers have said you have to have the church that looks and feels very similar to how it looked and felt in the 1950s and 60s.
yeah,
Those were the golden ages of the American church. And millennials look at that, myself included, we look at that and say, but why? And I don't think there's always been a good answer to that because now the world in which we live is so much different than it was in the 1950s and 60s. All of our kids have their weekend sports. And so what do I do if my kid loves hockey and the hockey game is Sunday at 10 a.m.?
right.
Like, I can't go to church then. Well, that's one of the beauties that we're seeing with some of the millennials now taking over these churches saying, look, we've got to provide the opportunity for these folks. And so we went to a church for 8 years that had 2 services on Saturday nights and 3 services on Sunday. And it allowed us to flex our time.
Flexibility. There's another good aspect of
Yeah.
flexibility in going to church. When I was growing up too, when you were young, we went to church and it was do it this way and do it that way only, and don't. And now when I go to church, I see differences in the kinds of worship, the ways of worship, the music, and things like that. It's changing, and a lot of millennials thinks it's not changing for the better. But I tell you, there's a level of interest in spiritual matters that I think can contribute to society in a big kind of way.
I have to bring it up. I feel like from a biblical perspective, I've learned more listening to a Bigfoot and Jesus podcast than I have from most churches in the last 15 years. And it's
Really?
really sad when you think about it that way, but I have gotten so much deeper into my Bible from some of these episodes because I say, yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no
I'm gonna prove
way.
them wrong.
Yeah.
So, I just can't see Bigfoot in today's churches. I just it's beyond me. It really is, so.
Yeah, well, let's move on. We're going to lose the Bigfoot crowd now. So, what else do boomers do that millennials do not understand? That you all use landlines still. That's still a thing. People still pay for landlines.
I don't, and that was because I think of necessity because of travel and all that stuff, but, you're right, there's a use. I heard one guy say that he had a landline in case the cellular networks go down, and I'm like, "If that happens, your landline's gonna go down as well," so, um,
I guess
you
just
know what's
get a
it
ham radio. What do we do?
I hope we have a minute here, but I'll tell you a funny story, a boomer story about my wife. And she was like, the landlines, they get the long cords and you'd hold it up and
Mhm.
you'd hang it up and things like that. Well, her mom and dad wanted to get a second phone in the basement, so they had a phone upstairs and a phone downstairs. And so she learned that she could be out all night and then she could dial her home phone. It would ring upstairs and ring downstairs. And when her parents answered, she'd say, "Hey, mom, that's okay. I got it. You're okay. You can hang up." And the parents would say, "Oh, okay, you got it." Hang up, thinking she was downstairs. She was out having the time of her life. Those are the kind of things that boomers really appreciate in their old age, right?
I think that millennials might understand what you just described, but no one younger than us would understand that.
No, no.
How can you call and have 2 people on the same phone? Like, that's just such foreign thing. We'll have to talk about this sometime because we watched the Andy Griffith Show with our kids, and they were so confused by so many of the technology. Yeah, the rotary phones and different it's great.
Yeah.
All right, lastly, boomers love talk radio. Y'all love it.
Talk radio is real-time podcasts. That's what it is.
Podcasting
We
live.
should get a landline and set it over here on my desk with a rotary phone and let people call in because we could live stream it. See, that's we could become talk radio host, uh, important people,
Important
right?
people.
Famous.
Oh,
We doesn't that appeal to you?
every millennial's dream. Talk radio, that's great. Yeah, we don't do talk radio. We do podcasting.
Yep.
We do audio books a lot.
Yeah.
Talk radio, not so much. I mean,
We don't do audiobooks. We love our print books.
yeah, you do.
And by the way, I still take the newspaper. I get it delivered. Every week I get it delivered. I get ink on my fingers. I can hear the of the paper and I can smell the print of a newspaper. And I absolutely love it. Every single paper. I love to read them. So anyway,
Well, they still haven't figured that whole ink thing out, huh? That's unfortunate. Well, this has been a ton of fun. I hope that you now have a better idea as a listener of who are millennials, who are boomers, and just some of the funny things that we like or dislike about the other. We're really excited. We're going to start a new series for you next week. And we hope that you'll go back. If this is your first time listening, you'll go back and catch up on some of the old ones on how to run a meeting and how to own your own career. My favorite. One of the feedback pieces as we close, we've got an intern who's doing the video editing for us, and he called me after doing the running your own career, managing your own career, and he started asking questions. Well, how do I do this? And how do I? Oh, you're hiring another intern. Well, I need some management experience. Would you like some help in managing the new intern? And he's managing his own career right back on me. He's listening.
he did. He edited it and he played it right back and it just slapped you just like
Oh, yeah.
and I say, way to go. I love that way. Manage your own career. So but I think next podcast we'll get back a little bit more to the business world. This has been just kind of a break to kind of level set a little bit. So just remember,
Just because it's different.
doesn't mean it's wrong. Have a great day.